So we've got a city on edge, a massive federal operation, and a fatal shooting that just brought everything to a boiling point. Today, we're going to break down what's happening in Minneapolis and why the high-profile commander right at the center of it all has been suddenly removed.
Okay, first things first, the breaking news that's really shaking this whole situation up. The top Border Patrol commander in Minneapolis, Gregory Bovino, is out. He's leaving the city, and it's happening right now.
And that right there is the big question we're going to unravel. What exactly led to the man at the very heart of this federal crackdown getting sidelined so suddenly?
To really get why he's out, we've got to go back and understand the one event that pushed the city of Minneapolis right to its boiling point.
The flashpoint was the fatal shooting of a 37-year-old resident, a man named Alex Pretti, during a federal immigration operation. His death just ignited the city. Almost immediately, you had rallies and protests erupting all across Minneapolis over the weekend.
But you know, Pretti's death wasn't just some isolated incident. It was really the culmination of things getting more and more violent. Just look at this timeline. In January alone, there were 3 different shootings involving federal agents, starting with Renee Good on January 7th. So you can see, the city was already a tinderbox.
Now, the official story from the Department of Homeland Security is pretty clear. They say their agents thought their lives were in danger, and they're pointing to the fact that Alex Pretti was legally carrying a gun when it all went down.
But, and this is a big but, that official narrative is being seriously challenged. Witness videos have started to surface, and according to news reports, they don't give you a clear view that the agents were in any immediate danger. That major discrepancy is right at the heart of all the public anger.
So you might be asking, what were all these federal agents even doing in Minneapolis in the first place? Well, they were there as part of this huge federal crackdown, and that's the bigger picture here. It's called Operation Metro Surge, and what it is an intense, really large-scale immigration crackdown all across the Twin Cities. We're talking a huge number of federal agents from both ICE, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and Customs and Border Patrol.
And the scale here is just immense. There were over 3,000 federal agents on the ground in Minnesota for this, about 2,000 from ICE and another 1,000 from Border Patrol. I mean, that is a significant federal presence for just one metro area. And the man leading that Border Patrol force? Commander Gregory Bovino. To really understand the controversy, you kind of have to understand the commander himself.
Bovino's had a long, pretty noteworthy career since he joined back in '96. What's interesting is that he was actually relieved of a command post out in California under the Biden administration. But then, under the Trump administration, he really rose to prominence, becoming the go-to guy for these aggressive, urban immigration crackdowns.
And before he even got to Minneapolis, Bovino had already led similar operations in other big cities. His tactics, well, they've consistently drawn criticism. In LA, you had agents smashing car windows. In Chicago, there were 10 standoffs and tear gas. He really built a reputation for a heavy-handed approach that often put him at odds with local leaders.
But it's not just his tactics on the street. Serious questions have also been raised about his credibility, in a formal legal setting. And this is a real bombshell. A federal judge, Sarah Ellis, was reviewing his conduct from the Chicago operation, and she didn't just question his testimony, she found he was, quote, not credible and, get this, was outright lying under oath. So this history, this cloud of questionable credibility became a massive factor when everything blew up in Minneapolis. So with all that as the backdrop, the shooting of Alex Pretti created an instant political firestorm, and it led to some major fallout within the administration itself. In the aftermath, the official story just seemed to fracture. Commander Bovino was out there claiming Pretti wanted to massacre agents. The Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, went even further, calling Pretti a domestic terrorist. But then the White House almost immediately backed away from that label, which is a pretty clear sign of some deep frustration and disagreement happening behind the scenes. The response was fast. First, Bovino gets sidelined, sent back to California. Then President Trump sends in the border czar, Tom Homan, to take over command. And this move prompted the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, to get on the phone directly with the president. And here's what Mayor Frey had to say about that call. He said his main demand was crystal clear. Operation Metro Surge needs to end. And, according to the mayor, the president actually agreed that the situation as it was just couldn't go on. That's a pretty big shift, and it seems to have been driven by that local pressure.
So where does that leave us? Commander Bovino is out,
and a new federal leader is on the ground. The immediate crisis over leadership seems to be resolved, but the bigger questions are still hanging in the air. Is this the end of the conflict in Minneapolis, or are we just watching the beginning of a whole new chapter?